There we go. A pleasant good day, everyone, and welcome to part one, or episode one, or offering one of our two-part BFEP outreach event. This is with us this afternoon, and I just want to give you the date so we have it for the recording. Today is Tuesday, October the 29th, and our next session will be on Saturday, November the 9th. So if you know persons who weren't able to be here today, please bear in mind that there's another session Saturday morning, November the 9th at 10 a.m. And we're looking forward to having other persons join us. If you are here and you want to join us again, last year we had a number of persons who joined both days. Please do so, because sometimes the questions are different and the energy in the room is different. My name is Dr. Andrew B. Campbell, aka Dr. ABC, and I am the coordinator for the Black Future Education Pathway Program here at OISE. As we said, answer the call. And I have a team of amazing people with us this evening. We have Mohammed, we have Kadar, who are both BFEP Year 1 students. We have AJ, we have Antonio, we have David Montemera, Professor David Montemera, Shalita Walker, who is going to be sharing with us about all this thing about needing more Black educators. Before I call on Mohammed, who is going to do the land acknowledgement for us, Mohammed Rahe, who is going to do the land acknowledgement for us, and Kadar will do the ancestral acknowledgement. I want to establish even before that how important this conversation is going to be today, how important this presentation and the sharing from these amazing persons is going to be. And you're going to hear Antonia's voice, AJ's voice, Shalita, who is a system principal, and David Montemera, who is an associate professor teaching stream here at OISE, and one of the founder with myself of the program 3 years ago, who started this initial work. I want to talk about that just before I even get into that just this week in school, there was some conversation about Toronto Catholic District School Board, Durham District School Board, Peel District School Board, who specifically have documentation out there. You could Google their documentation talking about the need to hire and recruit more Black educators. So we know for a fact that we need more Black educators in in our schools, and we do not have them. And so we're going to talk about what we are doing here at OISE to improve that. At this time, we're going to start with our land acknowledgement, and I'm going to invite Mohammed Rahege to do that for us. Mohammed, over to you.
Hello, everyone. It's Mohammed Orage. I just want to make a small, you're very close though. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to start off with our land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you so much. We're moving right along. I appreciate that, Mohammed, and the ways you have showed up. And Mohammed is one of our first-year student, our first-year TC in the BFEP program. And also, I must also say, because these are important things to note, Mohammed is also the GA come January for the Center for Black Studies in Education. And I know these things are important things for us to know, the opportunities in which many of us find ourselves within the institution to impact. And so thank you for that, Mohammed. We're moving right along, and we're going to call Kadar, and Kadar will be doing the ancestral acknowledgement for us. Kadar, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. We acknowledge the Indigenous Africans who are forcibly removed.
Kadar, please wait. Please wait. We have some persons with their mic on. Can you turn off your mic, please? Please make sure your mic is off. Thank you so much. Kadar, begin again.
Thank you. We acknowledge the Indigenous Africans who were forcefully removed from their native lands and dispersed across the New World. This involuntary migration heavily contributed to the movement of African-descended people across the African diaspora to places like Canada. As students and learners, we deem it highly necessary to think deeper and examine the processes that led to the dispossession of Indigenous peoples on this land and settler colonialism. Stolen people on stolen land. In entering a conversation about anti-Black racism, it is important to center the humanity of Black children and Black families and to examine systems such as the education system that act upon them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Kadar. And I was going to invite everyone that as you're engaging in this conversation this evening, that you feel please to write questions as we are going along in the chat box. Before I could say it, somebody did, and David Montemere already responded to you. This is good for us. This is how you glean information and gain knowledge. So please use the chat box community if you have a question, anything as we going along. We don't have to wait for the Q&A session. You can just ask us questions as we go along. So this evening, as I said before, this is what our agenda looks like. I'm going to do a quick presentation. I think I'll take maybe 10 minutes or so to do that presentation. And then we're going to have sharing from our amazing speakers, 3 minutes conversation, 3 minutes sharing about why is it that we need Black educators and the importance and coming from different spaces. So we have persons who are coming from different spaces and different ideas and different position and different lens, and they are going to share with us. And so it's going to be AJ, followed by Antonia, followed by Shalita Walker, and then followed by one of our founder of this program, Professor David Montemero. And of course, I myself, I'm Dr. ABC, and we're going to get right into it. So as you see that's our website. You can always just Google Black Future Educators Pathway. Good to see everyone. And this is where we start with our admission. This is where we start. So go on the website, everyone. The website is very live. This is a picture we took from the website from last year. If you go Google the OISE BFEP, OISE Black Future Educators Pathway, you'll get to see all this stuff on it. You'll see the video from last year as well, and you'll get to see our academic pathway. I'll show you some of that in a minute, but I want you to know that there is a website that you need to go to get some of this information. It's important that we do that. And thank you, David. I see the link is in the box. It's always important for you to get the information from the website because it's current, it's updated, and any changes made is always there. So that's important. So the BFEP, the formally Access Pathway for Black Educators, seeks to build an intentional pathway to attract future Black educators and provide them with multifaceted support to assure success in OISE's Master of Teaching program, known as the MT program. Numerous studies and policy reports have identified how the persistent lack in teacher diversity fails to reflect student diversity in K-12 schools and contributes to the reproduction of inequitable outcomes as students miss the benefits of representative role models who adopt culturally responsive and critical conscious pedagogy. This initiative seeks to address the persistent harm identified in University of Toronto's Anti-Black Racism Task Force 2021, and aligns with commitments to equity, diversity, and accessibility in OISE's academic plan and the Master of Teaching Race and Inclusion report. I want to also add that just last night, I had the absolute pleasure last night of joining Karen Murray from the TDSB, and Natasha, Professor York, who actually wrote this Land Acknowledgement. Context is so important. So Natasha Henry, who is the president of the Ontario Black Society, educational consultant and historian, and now professor at York University, who crafted this acknowledgement. We had a talk last night. We were invited on a panel for the Toronto Catholic District School Board, and the conversation was around Black history in school and culturally responsive critical conscious pedagogy. So these conversations are relevant, they are new, they are needed, and they are necessary. And so I want you to know where we are at. So what has happened with this process? So the intent here is to disrupt the reproduction of inequitable outcomes as students miss the benefits of representative role models, right? We see that. We see what's happening in our school. If we had time, we could show you bunch of clips and tons of stuff on the news where things are happening where there are no representation in our schools. We have so many schools today in the TDSB and in many schools where we have a lot of racialized kids and Black students, and there are no Black or racialized faculty on those staff. And it is important. There are numerous studies being done. You can see from here that we address the Master of Teaching Race and Inclusion report by Kemp et al. 2020 and University of Toronto Anti-Black Racism Task Force report. We are building an intentional pathway to not only attract, but support future Black educators. And you're going to hear about some of the things we have in place to make sure that happens. We are disrupting the reproduction of inequitable outcomes. You know, there are many ways today. I was speaking to Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board and reminding the Black teachers who showed up to be associate teacher for practicum how valuable their presence and their power and the work they're doing and their contribution is, because we need those kind of role models in our schools and our students need that. And so it's important that we get that. So what is it? The MT application process. Take a careful look at this slide. So number one, you identify the division and the teachables. And you can definitely ask questions about this in the chat. Please do ask questions about that. We see David is responding to that. I know Antonia and AJ will respond as well. So we identify the division. So we have 3 divisions to be a teacher. PJ, which is primary junior, you teach K to 6. JI, which is junior intermediate, you teach grade 4 to grade 10, and you have 1 teachable. And then, of course, you have IS, which you teach grade 7 to 12, and you have 2 teachables. You provide personal and your contact information. Of course, you're going to fill that in. You provide your academic history, which is your post-secondary transcripts. You need that for sure for your application to be complete. And of course, English language proficiency if needed. And then of course, number 5, you provide additional information and they'll ask you to submit a resume. There'll be an experience chart to complete. And of course, if you are applying for any entrance awards, you complete that section as well. The important section to note is number 6, step 6 in the application process. And step 6 in the application process, there are 3 open answer questions. Every single candidate, every single person, over the thousands or 2,000 applications we get every year, you get those 3 questions, the same questions to answer. However, before you start answering those questions, something happens for you to select to be a part of BFEP. And it's what we call an intentional opt-in. So you get to choose that I want to be in BFEP. I want my application to be considered for processing for the Black Future Education Pathway. And of course, you submit your 2 references, 1 professional, 1 academic. And this is what it looks like. So the opt-in faculty question, before you get into those 3 important questions, there is an indication. This is the magic where you indicate applicants who identify as Black may choose. It's not mandatory, but if you want to be a part of BFEP, that's why you're here. This is what you click. And you choose to indicate this on their application, which will direct your application into a Black Future Educators Pathway. BFEP applicants will follow the same admission requirements listed on the MT admission website. No additional application requirements for BFEP. So no, when you click you want to be considered for BFEP, there's nothing else extra to do. We were intentional in that because I'm sure you have known one of the criticism what are the critique and criticism of many pathway is that it becomes an extra burden. Now racialized or Black folks have to prove now something else for why you need to be accepted. And I must say to you, one of my pride and joy, or one of our pride and joy in this BFEP is that no, you didn't have to do anything extra to get in. And guess what? You didn't have to do anything less to get in. You applied to the program with every single standard that everybody is applied with, and you got in. But there are many intricacies and nuances when it comes to how applications are read, how people's lived experience are interpreted, and how people's walk has been interpreted. And so it's important to have this opt-in. So once you do that, you opt in that. Once you do that, then your application goes into the initial stage where the registrar's department comb through your application, make sure it's good. I need to say something at this point. Really need to say something. Let me go back to this slide. You must ensure that your application is complete. I'm going to say this, and I want you to, when I further recording so people can understand this. We always have every single year, every university, not just us, everywhere, that we have application that goes into the bin. I'm going to be honest, the trash bin, so to speak. Why? Because it's incomplete. Incomplete applications are not processed. We don't send to you, just say, hey, Andrew, you forgot to give me your reference. Or, hey, Andrew, you did not upload the experience chart. That doesn't happen. So when it goes, before it reaches our readers, it goes to the registrar where they comb through the application for completion. If it's not complete, it's not considered. And I must tell you, we have information, absolute information, that there are students who applied through BFEP whose applications were incomplete like any other place. And so I didn't even get to look at those applications because they are incomplete. So please make sure everything is complete. I want to share with you that we also have community. We're building community. And so before we had our core this year, which is 34 students, 34 Black students, I'm going to show you a picture of that in a minute. We had the MTBEA. So we have the MTBEA, the student arm of this, BFEP. And the MT, that's the Master of Teaching Black Educators Association. Antonio, who is going to speak, is right there in the picture. AJ, who's going to speak, is right there in the picture. Who have been here to support. Hopefully by next year, Mohammed, you will be in the picture. Next year, Kadar will be in the picture because you have been here to support the work. And that is what leadership is about. And I encourage you all as present members to step forward when it comes to leadership opportunities. So in our program, what makes it different? What is BFEP? Why, when you opt into BFEP, what makes it different? So all our students have what we call a home court. So at OISE, we do a core method, which means when you come into the program, you're placed in a cohort of about 30 to 34 students, and you travel with that cohort to your time here. When you opt in for BFEP, you are still in a home cohort, but you're also in a BFEP cohort, which means you're going to do, for this year, it is 4 courses together. So you have 4 courses together, what you do with your BFEP cohort. So all the Black students who are in their home cohort, you come out of that home cohort and you gather together as a cohort, own the Black students, and you do 4 courses together. For this present year, our Black cohort, they are doing anti-discrim and research methods 1 together. And then on the screen, you are seeing electives. We have 3 electives so far in the program, and they will end up doing 2 of those together. This first one here is special topic in teaching, and this one is Black identity and pedagogy. And our year 2 students are doing that as we speak. And then there is 5704, special topic in teaching, urban education. This will be offered this year to the cohorts. And then, of course, there's 5701, special topics in curriculum and the practice of community engaged learning. So that is what happens. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute because this is one of our most popular questions that I want to respond to. You do not do the entire 2 years together as a Black cohort. No. When you come into the program, you are placed in a home cohort. You move with that, so you're with every other student. But when it comes to the BFEP, you're pulled out of those home cohort and placed in BFEP for particular courses. This year, 2024 to 2025, there are 4 designated courses. 4 designated courses for BFEP, and they are growing opportunities. There's also our monthly BFEP meeting, which is just amazing, and there's another opportunity for us to grow. We're definitely going to respond to your questions, so have no fear there. And so next we come to practicum. We're actually in practicum season as we speak. Our students, Kadar and Mohammed, and all our students will be going on practicum beginning this Friday for their practicum, pre-practicum dates, and they will be on practicum for 4 weeks, starting next week, right? Next week. So year 1 and year 2 practicum candidates can opt for the purposeful placement in a winter practicum in the school districts, in these district school board. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to update this slide for next time, because we have added Dufferin Catholic District School Board to the list of schools here, and we'll be expanding that. We do have a representative here today from Halton, and so we're open. We'll have Halton students in the program as well, and Halton will be a part of that. And teacher candidates will have many opportunities, especially with the Toronto District School Board, who have been an amazing partner with us. They have just some amazing additional opportunities to support and to guide our students. And I can tell you, this is absolutely amazing opportunity. So we are not just bringing you in the program. Like we said at the beginning, it's not just to get you in the program, but to support your journey for the entire 2 years you are here in the program. And so the Master of Teaching Associate we talk about is a student-led body. You see them up there. They're planning. They're in planning mode. You can see us down there. You see us in many spaces. All these people on the screen, every single one is now a teacher, graduated. Everybody here has graduated and is teaching or doing their PhD. Some persons are teaching. Some persons are doing their PhD. Some persons are teaching in international schools. So yeah, it's amazing to see candidates just doing amazing work. And so that is it. We're going to get right into a Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to jump into, I'm going to move the pin from myself, and I am going to be sharing. We're going to get into our Q&A, but before we get into our Q&A, before we get into our Q&A, we're going to get into our speakers. And at this time, I'm going to ask to join us first. Our first speaker is AJ. Let me give you a minute. Give me a minute, AJ. Wonderful. And AJ, it's over to you. AJ, take the mic, 3 minutes on the clock, and share with us.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I don't know even where to start. There's so many things I can say to try and entice you to come into this, but I would say number one, like in overall North America, there is a dire need, I think, for schools to have more Black educators. And even I'll give some anecdotes later on, but if we think about society as it is, I'm a crim student. When I was an undergrad, I went to U of T. And so sociology, I see the world with this lens. If school is a microcosm of what's happening outside, and the biggest problem in high schools that I work in right now, I work in a Black neighborhood as well, is that the bodies in this school will be seen as like the bodies are seen in outside society. So when it comes to Black teens, especially, and I'll even say middle school, elementary school, they get adultified and treated way differently compared to their counterparts in the school. And just even yesterday, I have a brilliant kid in my class. I teach law right now at my high school, and this kid, every time teaching a lesson, he participates start to finish, asking inquisitive questions to push the conversation forward. But I just heard from one of his friends in another class that he was sent to the office by a supply teacher. And I was like, this can't be the same kid I'm thinking about, but it's a quick trigger that a lot of adults will have when the student looks a certain way. They're not afforded the same privileges or the same patience that their counterparts get. And I think that is the biggest issue. And when I did my research at OISE, even, I found a great finding when it came to like American school and desegregation for their schooling. But before desegregation, Black teens were not seen as a problem in school. It was only when schools started to get mixed and a lot of Black educators lost their jobs, and now there's no Black adults and role models in the building. So we still have a lot of ways to go. And especially in Canada, we live in a culture of like covert and subtle racism happening a lot. So I'd say that is the biggest reason why I tell you to come into teaching. I don't know how long that was. Was that 3 minutes or do I have time?
Thank you.
I was told to keep it tight.
That's fine. We can come back maybe later on when there are more questions. So thank you so much, AJ. Something I also must point out, AJ, that I'm sure they saw you in the pictures, more than one picture about being here. But I want you to add maybe 30 seconds to what you just said to just share about what was your time like in the program and being in OISE, being a part of the BFEP and the MTBEA?
Oh, great question. Yeah. So actually, I was really lucky to I didn't know about access pathways because I came in the first year was COVID, so I wasn't sure about things in OISE. So I had three very unique placements. I had my first placement was in a private school, Upper Canada College. My second placement was I was offered that by one of my homeroom like professors. The second one was a TDSB middle school, and I got to see how that was like. And the last one I got to do was through BFEP at the time, Access Pathways. But the stark difference in my AT, my associate teacher that I got, the resources I was provided through also the center and the extra training sessions I was given, it was like night and day. I couldn't see myself working in private school. The middle school experience was nice, but it was kind of like whatever I did, the teacher saw me from day one, was like, yeah, you know what you're doing. Go ahead, you know? But when it came to the AT with the BFEP program, the way she challenged things happening in the school, this is a teacher named Kalsum Anwar. Some people here know who she is. She's amazing. Yeah, the resources you'll get through the BFEP program is not like any other experience. And I've heard so many stories actually from classmates when I was at OISE, where they had some horror stories when they were at certain placements in schools and they had to end their placement early because of not feeling safe or something their AT did. So you skip all of these shenanigans probably through BFEP. You're going to have less barriers, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to see. I think you're at school in your classroom, right? I just you all bring me so much joy, and thank you for being here. Antonia, I just want to say thanks before you speak. I just want to say thanks. So Antonia is one of our past student, amazing leader inside and outside of the BFEP program. But apparently, I think it's last week, Antonia, this week you did the scholarship conversation with them. And today I was just hanging out in the center and a couple of them were passing by, we were talking, and they just kept singing your praise. And so I want to thank you for the way in which you poured into them. So tell us who you are, what you do, why you're so amazing, and why you love BFEP so much, and what is all of this? Talk to us.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot. Why am I so amazing? Anyways. Well, I'm so glad to see a lot of faces here today. And I think when we talk about having Black teachers in the system, we need to understand first and foremost that we live in a racist world. It's plain and simple. And if you don't know that yet, then yeah, you need to wake up. Our world is a racist world, and part of being a Black teacher in space is not just to come and reproduce the same things that you see happening. So it's not just about representation. Representation is actually the bare minimum of having your face in spaces. I'm in the primary junior division, so I'm with the babies, and everything that AJ just mentioned in regards to stereotyping, microaggressions, and how kids are adultified because they are Black, it happens right from kindergarten. So imagine a Black child acting up and he's getting suspended, or he's getting sent to the principal's office, or they're calling your parents, come and pick up your child is misbehaving. And the exact same thing for a white kid. He's in the principal's office playing games or getting cookies or something like that because they see two different people. They see a Black child misbehaving as aggressive right away, you know? So those little things are important for us to be in these spaces, not just to be there, but to actually disrupt, to stop these things from happening to our children. If you're not in the space, you can't do anything about it. So part of being in these spaces is for us to actually take steps to disrupt and dismantle the racism that's going on in our schools. So as I said, representation is the bare minimum. You have to understand coming in here that the work for Black teachers, it is a little extra. It's not the same, it's extra. Sometimes I'm most of the time I'm the only Black teacher in my schools, and I'm not even a permanent teacher yet. And I'm moving from schools to school, and the same thing I see, I show up, I'm probably the only Black teacher, and the demographic of kids is 80 to 85% Black kids in those schools. So the question is, if you do not see Black teachers in your spaces, why would you even think of becoming a teacher? It was the same thing as me. I grew up in Nigeria and all I saw were Black teachers. But then I came to Canada at 11 years old and it switched. And the trauma that came with that, the trauma of not even being able to understand who I am because of all the other influences of society telling me who I was. And there was no one there to guide me, right? Think about how often and how long kids from kindergarten, which starts as early as 3-4 years old, how long do we spend in schools? Okay, we're there from 8 o'clock to 3:30. We come home, our parents give us food, maybe we watch a little TV, do a little homework, we're in bed, same day, Monday to Friday. So a lot of kids spend a lot of time with teachers. And if they don't see themselves represented, if they don't feel the love or the care, that is what happens. And this system has been cycling over and over again. So for me, it was an intentional act to become a teacher because I understood as a child what the lack of having that representation is, the lack of someone actually seeing me for who I am and all my gifts and all my talents. Nobody saw it. And the first time I remember seeing a Black professor was actually in college, which is crazy. And it was DR.ABC when I was doing my bachelor's in child development. And I saw him, and I remember this thing that you said, DR.ABC, because you were talking about self-care. And, you know, in society, when we look at ourselves or we sit down at home, you know, we're thinking, oh, just sitting down and not, you know, and not doing anything, that's not good enough. You have to be active. You have to be. And DR.ABC remembers saying, sit at home, don't brush your teeth all day, watch Netflix all day, eat peanut butter sandwiches. That is self-care. That's why he said, and I'm sitting there in place, I'm like, oh, I do that all the time. And I thought I was depressed. So I was just taking care of my mental state by doing nothing. You know, just having that conversation with someone that understands where you come from, you know, that makes a big difference. And after that, the next Black teacher I met was at the end of my bachelor's, and her name was Dr. Evelyn Kissy. And when I say I met this woman, she was glorious. She was wearing a traditional African outfit, standing there with her nice natural braids. And I looked at her and I was a little confused, actually. And I was like, are you my teacher? And she said, yes. And I said, I sat in the front of that class with my hand up the entire class because for the first time I felt seen. And she saw me and she encouraged me and she made me feel empowered. That was where I got most of my empowerment from before I got to OIZ, because I was able to critically understand why we need to be in these spaces. And then I got to OIZ, and, you know, with the Access Pathway program came in my second year, which is now BFEP. It came in my second year. I was co-coordinating with David Montemuro and Rukia Mohammed at the time. And it was just about connecting our community because, again, I was the only Black student in my cohort when I went to school. So everybody that has a research and a Black cohort right now, you should know how privileged you are to have this space, to be able to be in a space with people that look like you, that share the same thing and have conversation and not be shy or not be intimidated and be able to open up and learn from other people's experiences. So I think I've passed 3 minutes, DR.ABC, but,
Yeah.
but I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop talking. And I just want to welcome everybody. And I hope you take on the call because it is a responsibility. It's a critical responsibility. And know that I and all the past BFEP members are here for you. You can reach out at any time and we'll try to support you through this process.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you so much. I love you, Antonia. Thank you so much. And we use those words absolutely for the recording. You said two things before I bring on Shalita Walker from Halton District School Board. You said two things that resonate with me. The first one you said is representation is the bare minimum. But then you add that by saying critically understand why you need to be here. I want to repeat that so persons who are watching this video, persons who are applying to come to Teachers College, understand critically why you need to be here. We need, it's not coincidental we said we need Black educators. We need Black educators, and not just showing up to represent, but to do the work, to be intentional about the joy and the affirmation that you get. Because what those little kids get in kindergarten from you, Antonia, they don't get anywhere else. There's a skill embedding it out to affirm little Black kids that I can tell you as a teacher for 27 Septembers, a lot of persons don't know how it is done. And there is a gift and a skill in how we affirm. So thank you, thank you, Thank you. We're going to move on. We're going to move on and we're going to invite Shalita Walker from Halton District School Board, who is amazing, who do all the work, who is supporting equity, supporting the QTAN there in Alton, so supporting racialized educators, doing the work, showing up, disrupting in so many ways. I just want to thank you for what you do, Shalita, in Halton, and as you do as a Black woman, showing up with such intentionality. Tell us, 3 minutes, why do we need more Black educators?
Thanks so very much, Dr. Campbell. And I do want to echo the same sentiments that you shared with Antonia, because I resonated so much with her comments, because the Halton District School Board is very much that board where our 2021 census data shows that 82% of the educators that are in classes are identify as white, whereas almost 50% of the students do not. Now, that doesn't mean 50% are Black, but it means that we have a disproportionality in the staff that students will see. And when it comes to Black educators, students can technically enter into junior kindergarten, graduate by grade 12, and never ever have been taught by, seen, or experienced a Black educator. And yes, you're absolutely right. Representation is the bare minimum. And something that you said, Antonia, about the fact that there's an additional layer as a Black educator. There's an additional burden that you carry in the body that you're in as you enter into schools. So one of the things that I do in my role as assistant principal for human rights, equity, and inclusive education is to lighten that burden for and certainly I think what you were referring to is the Indigenous Racialized Educators Network, the Queer and Trans Affinity Network that also is part of our board. These two networks are affinity and affirming spaces. And so one of the things that we do specifically, and I'll speak specifically for Black identity, but one of the things what we do is understanding that there is an additional burden, especially for those who are coming in, and the newness of education and the newness of trying to understand and find your place and in the spaces that you're in, oftentimes being the one and only, is to make connections through networking, make connections through mentorship, make connections so that questions, there's some kind of a familiar face that you see, so that any of your questions or wonderings, concerns or worries, you have a place to go to. And so I always say that we don't need Black educators. We need Black school leaders. We need Black system leaders. We need Black directors. Halton District School Board has seen a significant difference, and not because there is that there's a deficit, but there certainly is a difference when you have somebody who is Black in leadership. And I've felt that and seen it personally with Curtis Ennis, who's our director at the Halton District School Board. I've seen that with Eleanor McIntosh, who's a superintendent with our within our school board. And I see the ways in which when we enter into spaces, students, their eyes light up. I see it in the ways in which staff, when they come to the table, they light up. And so the idea is to pass a baton. The idea is to reach a hand and lift up and empower and to support people in their advocacy. We know that there's a difference when you're in your first year. We know that there's a difference when you're not permanent yet. We know that the risks that you might be able to take is not the same as somebody who's in their final 5 years, or that have permanency or have been at a school for a certain period of time. So the Indigenous Racialized Educator Network that I co-founded about 8 years ago really works to do that. It works to support educators, to provide them with learning, to broaden so that they don't see that they are a problem, that they don't see it as the issue is me, but they realize that the system is the problem. And as Antonia said, it requires more learning. So IREN also provides additional learning. So we bring in speakers and guests like Dr. George Day, who came to our school to our board 2 years ago to speak to IREN, or Vidya Shah, who came in 2 years ago to speak to IREN, or the work that we do to ensure that we're affirming identity and that people understand that oppression is real. Because what we're asking is for people who, especially those who've gone through the Ontario public school system or the Ontario school system in general, to experience anti-Black racism, to experience anti-Blackness, and then for some reason want to come back in to those very spaces and open themselves up to having those experiences again. So the work that I do is about providing that protective shield by almost as, you know, a protective parent of wrapping your arm around to know that, hey, listen, I'm going to be right there with you in any which way I can. And so the advocacy is there. So we want Black educators, Halton District School Board, apply when you get to that point. But we want to also empower through mentorship so that you are sitting in places like I am sitting in, that you are, because there are those of you who are on this call right now who you're seeing yourself as, I just want to get in to a program. And what I'm saying is the names that are on this call could very well be my boss one day, could very well be that person who is leading an organization. And so that is what I ask you to think about, is to, yes, be in the present and be in the now, but to know that in organizations where they have affinity spaces, where they have people that understand your lived experiences and your identity, that we are really rooting to ensure that you see yourself beyond just a classroom, and that there's nothing wrong with staying in a classroom. There's value there, but that there's possibilities and opportunity for you beyond that. And so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for that, Shalita. You know, for me, I know when we come to these conversations, people do like to get guidance. And I believe I've been on many panels and I like the guidance, but I also like when people show up knowing what we're talking about with a heart, because different people, I have learned over the years, I've done this for many years, that different people resonate with different things. And so giving everybody the basic information is important, but hearing you speak from that, hearing Antonia's voice in a very intentional way about her lived experience and her journey in the school, hearing AJ, that is important. And it's funny, before I bring on Associate Professor David Montemira to be the final speaker, and then we get into some of the Q&A, and David has been very busy in the box responding to questions. I must say, today I was in an elevator, Shalita, and I walked into the elevator, and there's my professor at OIC, my direct supervisor, Professor Jim Ryan. I've not seen him in years. And he said to me, congratulations, I hear the things that you're doing. I am in a space, I am in a seat at a table to do this. So when I see the AJs and the Antonias and the Kadar, and I see who is out there, I smile because I see them. I see Doreen Bonsu, one of your own person, Doreen, I see where they're going. I see where we are getting into spaces. So yeah, we need more Black educators, and we're going to definitely get more Black teachers and principals and superintendents, because representation matters. But like Antonia said, has to critically understand why we're here, why we show up, and how we show up. So thank you so much. I'm going to invite to this at this time our associate professor in the Master of Teaching program, David Montemira, who also was absolutely pivotal in the initial stage, the starting of this program. This entire BFEP began with David Montemira and myself as partners in this. And as Antonia said, brought in other persons to do the work. So David, it's over to you. You have answered a lot of questions, David. You can literally just do Q&A, and it's amazing. But I want you to talk about a little bit, bring us back to the start, bring us back why we're here, bring us back to the criticality of, as Antonia said, why we need to be here and what is important. So thank you. Over to you, David.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Lovely to see a full room. It's really exciting to see. I was listening to Shalita, and I really think that piece around leadership is so impactful, as people have already commented. A couple weeks ago, I was at school in TDSB, and there were 14 superintendents who happened to drop by my room. 70% racialized teacher candidates. The only superintendent who looked like, there was one superintendent who looked like me. The rest were all racialized, and the teacher candidates, they saw that, they commented, and their mouths were like, oh, so this is what's happening in leadership. And so they felt seen in a way that wasn't the case when I was starting off. So the few things I'll just comment on, I guess, to add, people drew upon their experience in really impactful ways. Andrew pointed to how the program got started. Teacher ed is hard. Teacher ed is busy. Teacher ed is demanding. It's complicated. You're going from being an excellent student. You got into a graduate program at U of T. You're capable. You have all these requisite experiences and so forth. And you come in and you begin, and it's a complicated space to navigate schooling. And within teacher ed at OASI, like lots of places, for a lot of teacher candidates, they have the added kinds of challenges which people voice. So some of our Black teacher candidates a few years ago came to us and said, "Hey, you know what? You're given the voice, the commitment, the expression that you're supporting equity and inclusion and so forth, but we are not experiencing your program. We are not experiencing the schools when we go in practicum, and we don't experience in our classes." So we heard those voices. We worked with the students, and collectively we put together a program that not only is it important to, as Shalita was saying, to have a network once you're in the school space, but it's also really important to have this network through the program, because the conversations of identity appear, conversations of race, conversations of exclusion. Those conversations end up landing in a different way from some folks in the room. Particularly Black teacher candidates gave voice to how they found themselves often having to be the educators in the space for their white peers and those other peers within the room who didn't have a lot of understanding, including some of their profs. And so we intentionally worked hard, and we're still growing, we're still learning. This is the first year of the full cohort, but I think we've done some important, helpful things to assure that there's a community of support that's intention, that allows a space for people to really critically interrogate the complexity of diaspora and African peoples. It's not a uniform identity, and oftentimes there's not a lot of space to explore that. Just today, the last couple of weeks, I guess I should say, I've been in high school, so I teach in a school-based program at 2 TDSB high schools, and the conversations around how the persistence of streaming continues to track and code students into different directions. In both of the schools, Central Tech and Winston Churchill, they both have programs which I think is hopeful and optimistic. They both have programs that focus on celebration as well as addressing anti-Black racism through courses and co-curricular kinds of activities. So while we in this room may have an understanding of the challenge, I also think it's important to be alert to that there actually are a goodly number of things that are happening at board levels from school to district that can support you, not just from your teacher ed, but into the community that we hope to aspire to build through the BFEP network. People continue to come back, people continue to lend to community, because as Antonia said, it's not just about identity, but it's about the will and drive to be critical and change. So those are some of the things I want to share, and I think it's important to protect some time for
Thank
Q&A.
you so much for that, David. And I love that sharing of the story of having your core, getting to see those Black leaders in the space. I also love that Mohammed commented in the chat. Mohammed, I can just imagine, I know I am not you, but I can just imagine that feeling. Last year, this time, he gave me goosebumps when he said it, because I remember last year, this time, you were asking the question. When David, you were asking questions. So those of you who are asking all these questions, yes, there's a space for you at OISE. The last thing we'll do before we open up for a few more questions, that is just to take you on a quick tour of the our information pages. So that's the website. It's live. David had already put that box in the chat. You check on the website, take a minute, go through the frequency asked question. I always encourage students, read. Click on every single thing. You can't break anything on a website. Take it from me. Click on every single thing. Get the information yourself. I've seen students and people in all walks of life being hurt, being disappointed because they did not get the information themselves. So make sure
You're in the class too.
Can you turn off your mic, please?
You're in the class.
Your mic off. Thank you. There's also our social media page. Please follow us on social media, on our BFEP page. Follow us on social media. There is an article that I think David put that in the box as well. There's an article there talking about the pathway. This is what happened this year. There's an article there. And hopefully next year you'll be a part of this picture. Some of you next year will be a part of this cohort of picture. And then, of course, let me go back to this. I want to show this article. And this is where we are coming from, right? That's, if you notice, Antonia is in that, AJ is in that as a student at that time. Some of our students there are gone on to do PhD. Some have gone to different places. and we are growing from here, and we are at this group, and next year, hopefully more persons. So I want to leave that with you. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information there to follow us. Thank you so much. We're going to take a 1 or 2 quick questions before we go. I know David answered a lot of questions. Oh, one more thing to make a note of. On the website, there is a link for you to ask questions. Very important to ask the questions at the link, empty information. So this is a very important link. David can put that in the box for us as well. Thank you. mtinfo@utoronto.ca. Take it from me. Somebody's there to answer your question. Somebody's there to respond to your question as well. And some of those specific questions, you can reach out to me as well. But definitely for admission, you get all those questions there. Any question before we go? We're going to ask you to you can raise your hands. I'm going to stop the recording at this time because we don't want you to ask a question. It's been captured and maybe it wasn't a full thought out process, and you don't want your question to be broadcasted for everyone. So at this time, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's tuning in. Please remember there's another session on Saturday, November the 9th at 10 a.m. So those who are here can pull up again, but I know a number of persons have registered for that. If your friend, your bestie, your another friend, your student, your college mate, somebody you know is interested in OISE, they missed it, tell them there's another one, the exact thing coming back up again on Saturday, November the 9th. Thank you so much.